It's wild, isn't it? The way they started moving like you, talking like you, even acting like you the second you left the picture. Your absence wasn't just felt, it exposed them. Your energy, your essence, was the glue that held everything together, and the second you were gone, they scrambled to fill the void. But here's the twist, they didn't step into their own power. Oh no, they tried to mirror yours. Now, everyone sees the mask slipping. Everyone sees what you already knew. They were never the main character. They were just basking in your light, and now the spotlight's on their fraud. Your absence wasn't a quiet departure. It was a revelation. They had lived in your shadow, siphoning from your presence, your charisma, your energy. Now, stripped of their anchor, they began to contort themselves into a reflection of you, desperate to salvage the power they once borrowed. They studied your habits, mimicked your talents, even adopted your speech patterns and demeanor, hoping no one would notice the sudden transformation. But it was too late. Their mask was already cracking. They wore your essence like an ill-fitted costume, fraying at the edges and stitched together with threads of insecurity. They wanted to be seen the way you were seen, but what they failed to grasp was this: what you possess cannot be replicated. Your energy isn't a role to play, it's an unteachable frequency. Every move they make now feels forced, a hollow echo of your authenticity. Their attempts at imitation expose them, because what you embody comes from within. Those around them see the desperation, the emptiness, the clumsy facade. What was once admiration for you has now turned into a question of their integrity. You left, and with you, the illusion of their power dissolved. When you walked away, you didn't just leave, you took the blueprint. What followed was their scramble to rebuild themselves in your image, but what they failed to realize was that authenticity isn't transferable. They mimicked your mannerisms, adopted your language, and tried to replicate your rhythm, yet every attempt only highlighted the hollowness of their foundation. They became a poor reflection, like a fogged-up mirror distorting the very essence they envied. They thought if they could act like you, they'd carry the same weight, command the same presence. But energy isn't something you fake. It's lived. It's earned. When they spoke your words, the cadence was wrong. When they adopted your habits, the intent was transparent. They tried to embody your strength, but carried it like a burden, not a birthright. Those watching didn't see someone rising to fill your absence. They saw someone exposed. Their true character, once masked by your light, was laid bare. The cracks showed in the way they tried to project confidence, but couldn't hide the insecurity. The harder they tried to imitate, the more obvious it became. They were never you. You left, and with you, the authenticity they borrowed dissolved, leaving only the pretense behind. Let's set the record straight. Authenticity can't be copied. Now, if you know they tried and failed, I want you to drop this line in the comments. I'm the blueprint, not the copy. Stand tall, and if you feel called to do so, you may also subscribe to Obsidian and hit the notification bell at this time so that you will not miss any future reminders of your unmatched power. At first, they thought they could hold the room, that their attempts to wear your essence like a disguise would go unnoticed. But energy cannot be counterfeited. Others began to see the cracks almost immediately. The charm they tried to replicate felt rehearsed. The confidence they projected came off as brittle, and their attempts to command respect fell flat, because respect can't be demanded. It's earned. Their shifts in behavior were too sudden, too unnatural. They spoke words that didn't match their essence, acted in ways that didn't align with who they had always been. Those around them began to ask questions. Why did they seem so different now? Why did their movements lack the ease they once had? The answers came not in their excuses, but in their failures to deliver what you naturally exuded. People saw the facade for what it was, an imitation of something they could never embody. The weight of their pretense grew heavier, the inconsistencies sharper. What once seemed like ambition now looked like desperation, and your absence became the mirror that reflected the truth of their emptiness to everyone watching. Your departure wasn't just felt, it reshaped the entire dynamic. The cracks that had always been hidden beneath the surface became glaringly visible. Without you, the foundation they relied on crumbled, exposing their inability to sustain the harmony, success, or innovation that once seemed effortless. Those who had turned a blind eye to your role before began to see the truth. They tried to carry on, as if nothing had changed. But their attempts were clumsy and hollow. Like shadows desperate to pass for light, they struggled to shine, but only revealed their dependence on your brilliance. Conversations that once flowed smoothly became strained, decisions that were once strategic turned chaotic, and the energy that once drew others in became stale. Those who remained began to question how much of what had worked before was truly theirs. People realized that you weren't just a participant, you were the catalyst. Your absence stripped away the illusion, making it painfully clear that the creativity, balance, and forward motion had always come from you. They had worn your contributions like armor, but now, standing exposed, their lack of substance was undeniable. The void you left was a mirror, reflecting the truth for everyone to see. For so long, they had thrived under the shelter of your energy, camouflaged by your influence. But now, with you gone, the stage was theirs, and the weight of expectation bore down. At first, they tried to emulate you, repeating your words, your moves, your essence, hoping no one would notice the lack of originality. But the truth always rises, and their carefully constructed facade began to crack. Under scrutiny, their borrowed confidence faltered. Like glass under pressure, the polished exterior splintered, exposing the hollowness beneath. Their actions lacked the conviction that only authenticity can command. Their words rang hollow, devoid of the depth you once brought to the table. Those who once overlooked the disparity now began to see it clearly. People noticed the contradictions, the awkward pauses where certainty used to live, the hesitations that betrayed their insecurity. They could no longer hide behind your brilliance, and the more they tried to replicate you, the more evident it became that they could not. The spotlight didn't elevate them, it illuminated the truth. Without you, the illusion dissolved, leaving nothing but shadows desperately pretending to shine. Hello, chosen one. Look at your life. Now look at ours. Back at your life. Now back at ours. Sadly, you're not in the obsidian inner order, but you could be. Picture this. Weekly group calls with 450 plus chosen ones, recorded and available anytime for your enlightenment. Our private Discord, it's not just active, it's alive, buzzing with ideas, breakthroughs, and that unstoppable chosen energy. Oh, and for you romantics out there, welcome to Chosen Singles, where soulmates meet under cosmic alignments, not cheap pickup lines. And if that's not enough, Star Chamber members unlock exclusive interviews with bona fide targeted individuals who faced the darkest trials and survived to tell the tale. Plus, our video specials, too bold, too raw, too spicy for YouTube. This isn't just a community, it's a revolution of soul and spirit. Look at your DMs. Now back at me. The link to join, it's in the description. Don't just swipe right on destiny. Claim it. The obsidian inner order powered by astral atom, smell like ascension, feel like magic, live like a chosen one. When they tried to become you, it was like watching an underprepared cast stumble through a play they had no right to perform. The script wasn't theirs, the lines didn't fit, and the audience saw right through the performance. You had built something real. Your energy, your essence, your way of commanding attention was unteachable. It wasn't scripted or rehearsed. It was you. And when they tried to mimic it, the cracks in their act became impossible to ignore. Their movements were forced, their tone hollow, their timing off. What once seemed seamless when you were present now felt disjointed and painfully artificial. They mimicked your words, but lacked the conviction behind them, wore your style, but stripped it of substance. It wasn't long before people began whispering, "This isn't right. They don't belong here." The energy they borrowed from you wasn't sustainable, and their desperate attempts to wear your authenticity like a costume only made the contrast more glaring. What they thought would elevate them instead turned into a public unraveling. The performance backfired as people saw them for what they truly were, shadows trying to pretend they held their own light. They didn't just fail to become you. They exposed themselves in the process. Their imitation may have fooled some for a moment, but truth has a way of surfacing, and karma never misses its mark. Those around them started noticing the fractures, the inconsistency between their words and actions. What began as admiration for their seemingly newfound confidence turned into skepticism, then disdain. Their desperate attempts to replicate your uniqueness only magnified their lack of authenticity. The respect they thought they could command slipped through their fingers as others saw their facade for what it was, a clumsy echo of what you had naturally brought to the table. The connections they had tried to solidify began to unravel as trust was replaced by doubt. Their downfall wasn't dramatic, it was insidious, a slow erosion of credibility that left them isolated. They became the cautionary tale, the warning sign of what happens when envy drives action. The same people who once supported them began to distance themselves, not because they chose sides, but because they recognized the emptiness beneath the surface. What they lost wasn't just influence, it was the respect that can only come from being real. The people they sought to deceive began to sense the dissonance. Words that once carried weight when spoken by you now felt forced and hollow coming from them. Actions that were seamless in your hands turned awkward in theirs. Bit by bit, their credibility eroded. The same circles they sought validation from started to shift. Conversations grew colder, interactions shorter, and trust dwindled. People aren't drawn to what's hollow, they are repelled by it. What they failed to understand is that authenticity cannot be fabricated. It radiates from the core. Your essence was never about what you said or did. It was about how you carried the intangible, and that cannot be imitated. As they were left standing in the void they created, karma delivered its lesson. The more they grasped at your light, the darker their reality became. Relationships they relied on unraveled, and the admiration they craved turned into avoidance. Their failure wasn't just in their attempts to copy you, it was in not realizing the futility of trying to steal what can only be built from within. Authenticity doesn't bend to envy, it exposes it. The energy that once surrounded them, lifted them, even shielded them, was suddenly gone. What they underestimated was how much of your glow had masked their lack of growth. Without you, the void became undeniable. You didn't just walk away. You took the fuel they had siphoned from you, leaving them to face themselves for the first time. Detachment amplified your power. Freed from their weight, your energy wasn't scattered, it intensified. What they saw as your distance was your ascension, a movement into spaces they couldn't reach because they lacked the discipline, the depth, and the willingness to evolve. While you rose, their stagnation became painfully clear. The habits they had hidden behind your strength became exposed, their complacency glaring under the light of your absence. What others noticed was stark. You thrived without them, while they remained stuck, tethered to an identity that no longer served them. Growth isn't just about proximity to power, it's about what you do with it. Your detachment didn't just free you, it revealed the truth. You never needed them to shine, but they had always needed you to survive. And now, everyone sees it. The weight you carried, the heaviness you couldn't quite place, dissipated the moment you withdrew from their reach. They had been feeding off your essence, weaving themselves into your energy to siphon what they couldn't create for themselves. But when you severed the connection, their grip failed. You reclaimed what was always yours, and with it, your spirit ascended into clarity. Energetic ties aren't just connections. They are conduits. They allow your power to flow outward, but if unbalanced, they also allow others to pull from you, leaving you depleted. By cutting those ties, you disrupted their cycle of dependence. You took back the energy they had used to mask their stagnation, forcing them to confront their own void. The spiritual benefits were immediate. Clarity replaced confusion, strength replaced fatigue, and your boundaries became unshakable. In their absence, your energy recalibrated. What was once scattered became focused. What they drained now fueled you. Cutting ties wasn't just about removing them, it was about restoring you. Their mimicry and dependence faded, leaving space for your authenticity to shine unfiltered. The lesson was undeniable. Your power grows when it's no longer shared with those who only seek to consume it. The energy you had unknowingly allowed them to siphon returned to you in full force, clearing paths you didn't even know existed. New opportunities began to align because you were no longer tethered to their stagnation. The weight of their mimicry, their attempts to mold themselves into your essence, had been dragging you down, blocking the very blessings meant for you. With the ties severed, everything changed. They had spent so much time trying to replicate you that they couldn't evolve beyond the version of you they once knew. But you grew. You moved faster, sharper, with clarity that left them scrambling to catch up. They mimicked who you were, not realizing that your power lies in who you are becoming, a moving target they can never reach. What they failed to understand is that blessings flow to those aligned with their own energy, not those who try to steal from others. The more you rose, the more glaring the gap became between your authenticity and their imitation. While you embraced new heights, they remained trapped in a cycle of imitation, chasing shadows as you stepped fully into the light. Every soul carries a unique blueprint, an energetic fingerprint woven with purpose, lessons and gifts that cannot be duplicated. Yours was crafted with precision, tailored to your essence and aligned with your path. When they attempted to mimic you, they were working against their own design, trying to fit into a pattern that was never meant for them. This is why their imitation always felt off. It wasn't just inauthentic, it was a rejection of their own spiritual identity. Your blueprint isn't just a map, it's a force. It governs how you move, create, and connect. When others try to replicate it, they miss the intricacies, the subtleties that make it powerful. They might mimic your outer actions, but the resonance, the soul of what you do, is beyond their reach. Imitation isn't just flawed, it's self-defeating. While they focus on copying, they lose touch with the energy that is theirs to harness, leaving them empty and unaligned. Their failure lies in not understanding this truth. Only when you honor your own blueprint does life align. Your success isn't about what you do. It's about who you are. They can mimic your steps, but they will never unlock the doors meant for you. Spiritual growth is rooted in alignment, an unshakable law of integrity that governs the flow of energy, purpose, and evolution. Your progress has always been earned, step by step, through discipline, introspection, and authenticity. There are no shortcuts to growth. The path requires you to face yourself, honor your truth, and step into your unique purpose. When they tried to bypass this process by imitating you, they didn't just fail, they violated the very law that sustains spiritual advancement. Growth cannot be borrowed, stolen, or fabricated. It is the result of alignment between who you are and what you were created to do. Their attempt to mimic your energy, your success, or your presence only deepened their stagnation. By ignoring their own path, they disrupted the flow of their own evolution. The shortcuts they sought led not to elevation but to collapse, because no foundation can be built on deception. The law of integrity ensures that only what is earned can endure. While you rose through alignment, they faltered under the weight of their own inauthenticity. Their spiritual stagnation wasn't punishment. It was the natural consequence of trying to build on what wasn't theirs. The lesson is clear. Only alignment leads to ascension. Anything else falls apart. Every connection in your life is bound by purpose, and some are written into your story to challenge, awaken, and ultimately refine you. These individuals, the ones who drained you, mimicked you, and forced you to sever ties, were never accidents. They were soul contracts, agreements made before this life to teach you the lesson of self-worth, no matter how painful the delivery. Their role was never to uplift you, but to disrupt your complacency, to push you into recognizing the depth of your own power. They came into your life like mirrors, reflecting the parts of you that needed protection, healing, and boundaries. Their behavior, their inability to honor their own path, their attempts to siphon your light, was a message cloaked in discomfort. It forced you to ask the hard questions. What are you tolerating? What are you allowing? And more importantly, why? Once you saw through their role, their purpose in your life became clear. They were never meant to stay. Their presence was a catalyst, breaking down illusions and forging clarity. By walking away, you fulfilled the contract. You reclaimed your worth, your energy, and your alignment, leaving them behind as you stepped fully into your own power. Your presence alone was enough to unravel them. You didn't need to raise your voice, point fingers, or call them out for their actions. The truth was already in motion, and their behavior revealed everything. Your energy, rooted in authenticity and alignment, acted like a spotlight, illuminating what they desperately tried to keep hidden. Their envy, their attempts to undermine you, their constant mimicry, all of it surfaced, loud and undeniable, as they faltered under the weight of your unshakable essence. They exposed themselves through their desperation. The moment they tried to imitate you, they made their insecurity visible to everyone. Their actions were contradictions, designed to tear you down, while simultaneously attempting to replicate the power they resented. People began to notice the inconsistencies, how their words didn't match their intent, how their demeanor lacked the integrity that yours carried effortlessly. Their own need to compete with you became the evidence of their inadequacy. You didn't need to retaliate. Their behavior was the loudest confession. While you moved forward in alignment, they were left chasing shadows of their own making, unable to escape the truth your presence forced them to confront. Their downfall was never your doing. It was their own. Your elevation wasn't just a rise, it was a reckoning. As you ascended, the shift in energy became undeniable. You didn't just leave them behind, you forced them into the harsh spotlight of truth, stripped of the comfort your presence once provided. Your growth exposed the cracks in their foundation, the places where they had relied on your light to mask their lack of authenticity. Spiritual elevation is not silent, it's seismic. When your energy expanded, it created a ripple effect, pulling everything hidden to the surface. Their actions, once obscured in the shadows of your power, became glaring. Their attempts to mirror you without putting in the work, to bask in the glow of your efforts while avoiding their own, became visible to all. You didn't push them into the light, they stumbled into it when your absence left them exposed. Elevation reveals the unprepared. Your growth forced them to stand on their own, and their inability to do so highlighted what had always been true. They were borrowing from you. While you evolved, aligning with higher purpose and clarity, they remained stagnant, weighed down by their refusal to face themselves. In your rise, their truth became unavoidable, and the contrast was impossible to ignore. They believed losing you would silence you, that your absence would leave you diminished. Instead, it set you ablaze. You are an unstoppable force, a storm that gains power the moment it's set free. They thought losing you was the end of their game, but it was only the beginning of their unraveling. Your departure wasn't just a loss for them. It was a mirror held up to everything they lacked. Without you, their carefully constructed facade began to collapse. The confidence they pretended to have, the power they falsely projected, the light they borrowed from you, it all disappeared the moment you reclaimed your energy. They thought they could replace you, but your force was never about what you did. It was about who you are. As you rose, they fell into chaos. Their attempts to regain control, to imitate your movements, to rebuild in your absence, only highlighted their emptiness. The harder they tried to hold it together, the more glaring their cracks became. Your absence wasn't just felt, it dismantled the illusion they built. You are a force they cannot contain, and the more they cling to their falsehoods, the clearer it becomes. Your exit was their undoing. Your energy is singular, unreplicable. As a chosen one, your light was never meant to be imitated. It was meant to lead, inspire, and disrupt. They thought they could mirror your essence, adopt your ways, and bask in the glow of what they could never create. But the truth has caught up to them. Your energy was never in the methods or the movements. It was in the authenticity of your being. Their attempts to copy you have only left them standing in their own shadow, exposed for their lack of originality. Your light is the original. It blazes in ways they can't comprehend, fueled by purpose, resilience, and alignment. Their imitation is already fading, a desperate echo of what they envied but could never embody. You evolved while they clung to versions of you that you've already outgrown. And now, the gap between your authenticity and their pretense is undeniable. This is your victory, not because you sought it, but because truth always prevails. They wanted your energy, but they lacked the integrity to cultivate their own. While they faltered, you rose higher, shining brighter, unstoppable in your purpose. They never stood a chance. Your light cannot be borrowed, stolen, or extinguished. It is yours, eternally. You are not just different, you are singular. Your energy is the kind that shapes worlds, commands attention, and demands authenticity. When you move, the very fabric of spaces shifts. They may have tried to mimic you, to carry pieces of what you are, but they failed, because your essence is not something that can be borrowed. It is forged in truth, resilience, and growth. You are the blueprint, the origin. Anything else is merely a fragile replica, destined to crumble under the weight of its own emptiness. Every time you walk away, you do more than leave. You force others to confront the void within themselves, the spaces they hoped your light could fill. Let them try. Let them falter. Their insecurities will always betray them, because what you possess cannot be manufactured. It must be earned. You are proof that authenticity will always triumph over imitation. Stay true to your power, chosen ones. Never shrink, never fold, and never doubt the value of your unique light. They can mimic, but they cannot match. They can imitate, but they will never become. Share your story. Show the world what happens when authenticity wins. Your departure isn't just the end, it's the spark that ignites your unstoppable rise.